Hi everybody, today we have a chance to talk to a home inspector, and Jacob is going to tell us a little bit more about his company and what the home inspection process looks like. Well, Jacob, tell us a little bit more.
Hey, my name is Jacob Stevenson. I own Magnolia Inspection Company. We're a residential home inspection company here in the upstate of South Carolina. So I just wanted to give you guys a little summary of what the home inspection process looks like. Typically we start in the interior, so all interior finishes, whether it be drywall or flooring damage, potential plumbing leaks, electrical issues, built-in appliances. We also inspect the framing of the roof as well as the roof covering, so whether it be shingles, metal roof, tile, that's all included in the inspection, as well as the actual framing, attic insulation, that is all part of the inspection, as well as the foundation, crawl space, and the exterior of the home.
Is there a certain algorithm that you follow, just like, I don't know, come to the house with a list, or what does it look like?
Yeah, so we have a list. The inspection software that we use, there is a checklist, so it ensures that basically we don't miss anything. We check every component of the house, and typically this is the way I like to do it. I like to start in the interior of the home, do the interior finishes, and run plumbing, run electrical while I'm doing the interior. So that way, when I go to the outside into the crawl space of the home, I'll be able to see if there's any leaks, plumbing leaks that were evident from when I was running the plumbing inside the house.
Okay. And my clients often ask me if they need to inspect the roof and hire a different inspector to do that. Do you inspect the roof, and how different that roof inspection is from hiring a separate inspector to do that?
Yeah, so it's not necessary to hire a inspector specifically for the roof. It may not be a bad idea if you want someone that specializes in roofs only to take a look at it. However, we have an entire process for inspecting the roof coverings. I typically like to get on the roof and actually walk the roof. We also have drones that we use to inspect the roof if it is a really high or really steep pitch that we're not able to walk on. We will use drone imaging to inspect the roof, but no, it's not necessary. That is part of the home inspection. So I have seen issues where people will have a roofing company come out to inspect the roof, but that's not really where they make their money. So even though they are coming out for free, a lot of times they're going to try and sell you that the roof needs work, even though the roof's in perfectly fine condition. So there's nothing wrong with having a roofing company come out to look at it, but I would be wary about that because they are, at the end of the day, salespeople, and they are trying to, sell a product. So.
Okay. Yeah. Well, some companies charge you. So.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. But as for inspection report, what should a person who pays you, who hires you, expect to see? What kind of report is it going to be? If it's going to be if it has a lot of issues, because my clients have expectations to see a short report if it's like no issues in the house, or like what does it normally look like?
Yeah, so we have a very detailed report. There's it's not just about what problems are present in the house, but it's also information on the systems within the house. So how big your electrical service is, what type of plumbing is present in the house, the age and brand of your water heater, your HVAC system. So there's a lot of information in the report, but we typically have a summary page where all the more serious defects go to the summary, so you're not having to read through dozens of pages to find the issues with the house. So we try to make it easy for people on that side of things and break it down into a summary page so they can go there to just see basically the bigger ticket items that we found that need to be repaired. So typically we have a section for the different systems of the home. We have a section of the report dedicated to plumbing, a section of the report dedicated to electrical, to insulation and ventilation, a section for the foundation, and a section for the roof coverings and framing of the home. So we break it down section by section so that it's easy to kind of navigate the report and find the issues that you're looking for.
So if it's a long report, and it sounds like any report is going to be at least 50 pages long,
At least,
right?
yeah.
People shouldn't be scared, right?
No, and I tell people that all the time. Our reports are very thorough, but we do break it down into a color coding system. So we have red items, which would be safety hazards, missing fire alarms, gas leaks, stuff that could be really harmful that needs to be addressed immediately. Orange, still serious, but it's more of a recommended repair. So damaged siding, stuff that's should be repaired, but it's also not necessarily a safety or health hazard. And then we have blue items, which are more maintenance items, homeowner repairs, more just typical maintenance items that you're going to need to address over the life of living in the home, but not necessarily emergency or something that needs to be addressed right away. So we try to break it down in that way so that people understand and they don't feel overwhelmed when looking at the report. So
Gotcha. Can they give you a call and ask questions as for the report, or?
Yeah, absolutely. So I include all my contact information in the report. So I always tell people to feel free to reach out to me if there's something in the report that they don't fully understand or they just want to talk through something with me. I also welcome, some people like to come to the inspection. I welcome people to do that. Usually I recommend they come towards the end of the inspections in the last 30 minutes or so. And that is a lot of times helpful because in that way I can point stuff out to the client in person, and that way they have a little better idea of what to expect when they get the actual report.
Okay. And how long does it normally take to inspect the house, let's say 2,500 square feet?
Yeah, so for a house around that size, 2,000 to 3,000 square feet, usually will take me around 2.5 hours or so.
Okay.
Just depending on the age and the condition of the house, it may take me a little bit longer, but yeah, I usually tell people it'll be, between 2 and 3 hours based on the condition and the size.
Okay, gotcha. And how much would it cost to inspect a house 2,500 square feet?
Yeah, so, a 2,500 square foot house, that's going to run you about $325, between $3 and $350, depending on the size of, the exact square footage of the house. $300 to $350, and then it goes up incrementally from there. So if it's a larger home, you could be looking at closer to $400 to $500, or for a smaller home, you may be looking at $250 to $300. So it all depends on the square footage.
When it comes to choosing the inspector, what do people need to know about the inspector to say it is a good inspector? Because my clients are out of state, most of them rely on my advice, and I guess sometimes I don't feel like taking the whole responsibility, so I want them to know what kind of questions they need to ask the inspector to know that he's a good inspector.
Yeah, absolutely. So in South Carolina, they do require that all home inspectors be state licensed. So that would be the first question. That if you're looking for a home inspector, you want to make sure that they are licensed through the state of South Carolina. You also want to make sure that they've used an accredited training program. So there's a list of about 3 or 4 different programs that are approved by the state of South Carolina. And so, recommend asking, what training process they went through. There's a couple of, I guess cheaper courses that aren't nearly as thorough, and then there are some that are a lot better. So they're not all created equal. It would be important to ask about that.
How long does it take to get that license?
It depends. For me personally, it took me about between 3 and 4 months to get my license. Now I did have some prior construction experience, so that really helped speed the process up. But I would say for the typical inspector, it usually takes between 3 to 6 months to pass your training course and then pass the state exam. So, and once assuming that you pass that state exam, then you're have your license and you're ready to go to be a home inspector.
So basically, my clients need to ask for the copy of the license, right?
Yeah, the copy of the license, or you can also look up the inspector license on the
LR?
Yeah, it's the South Carolina Labor Licensing Regulation. You can do a license lookup through there and be able to find the inspector's information through there.
Okay.
So.
And my clients are buying homes from new construction homes. quite often, and the builder normally asks me if the inspector is insured.
Yeah.
What type of insurance is it, and do my client need to check that once they hire you to inspect a resale home?
Absolutely. Yes, I'd always recommend asking, if you are looking for a home inspector, I recommend asking if they have insurance and how much insurance coverage they have. Now, I do run into that issue with new construction. A lot of builders will not even let you on site unless you have at least $1 million in liability coverage for your insurance policy.
Okay.
And so that's definitely something to ask about when interviewing.
It sounds expensive. I hope it's not.
It's not too bad. No, I think the builders just like to make sure they're covered in case I was to for some reason cause damage to their property. But yeah, that's definitely an important thing to ask. There's most inspectors do have insurance coverage, general liability, as well as E&O coverage. However, there are definitely some inspectors out there that don't have insurance coverage, so it is important to ask about that, whether it's new construction or a resale home. But yeah, no, if you are buying new construction, you really have to make sure that they are covered up to that certain limit, so it's important to maybe ask the builder too what their requirements are.
Okay. And what types of inspections does your company do?
Yeah, so we obviously do residential home inspection that covers what we just talked about. I also offer pool inspections. I offer mold sampling. So I take a sample of the air inside the house to see if there's elevated mold levels.
Okay.
I do radon testing. That's a big thing here in the Greenville area. There's a lot of elevated radon levels in the area, so it's important to test for that as well.
Okay.
And then I also do Reinspections. So I've done some of those for you before, but if there's, depending on what comes up in the original home inspection, the seller will typically be required to fix at least some of the items, and I can come back, behind the seller and basically make sure that they actually fixed what they agreed to fix, and that it was, fixed in the correct way. So.
Can you tell us a little bit more about the pricing, like pool inspection, mold inspection, like all of them breakdown?
Yeah, so the pool inspection is a flat rate of $250, and we can schedule those standalone. So if you already have a home that has a pool and you just want to make sure that it's in good shape going into spring and summer, I can come out and do a standalone pool inspection, or it can be scheduled if you're buying a home that has a pool, it can be scheduled at the same time as the home inspection. But yeah, that's just a base fee of $250. The mold sampling, that's an additional $150 fee, and the radon testing is $125.
What about termite inspection?
Yes, so we offer termite inspections as well. We partner with a pest control company here in the area, and that's an additional $125 as well.
Okay. Sounds good. What about the inspection that you've done? Oh, I was going to ask you about radon inspection.
Mm-hmm.
I had one family that's, they're still under contract. They're going to purchase their house this month in a week.
Okay.
So they were really concerned about the level of radon in South Carolina in general. How often do you find radon in homes? Because you inspected homes for my clients quite a bit, and I don't think that we ever found any radon in homes that were inspected, but I don't do inspections as often as you do, so maybe.
Yeah, it's it's pretty sporadic, and it can be kind of random. I will say, most of the radon tests that I do come back low. I'd say maybe 10% of my radon tests come back with elevated radon levels. But it can be very random and sporadic. So even if your neighbor has no radon levels at all, that doesn't mean that your house couldn't have high radon levels. It's very hard to predict where the, elevated levels are going to kind of manifest above the surface, because it's basically, a gas that's being released from under the surface. And so, it's gotten to the point actually in Greenville County, they've started to require for new construction that all new homes have a radon mitigation system, passive system installed, and if there are elevated levels within the home, they can upgrade that system to an active system that has a basically a fan installed that helps vent the radon to the exterior. But I mean, I will say the majority of them come back low, but every now and then you will have a high radon level inside the home, and then at that point it's important to try and mitigate that, whether it's installing a system or having a licensed radon contractor come out to evaluate it. So I'd say maybe around 10% of my radon tests come back with elevated levels.
Okay, we didn't find any in my homes.
Yeah.
But,
fingers crossed that continues. So.
Yeah, exactly. But when would you say that's a big issue? When once you find radon, if it's crawl space, I guess that's gonna be not a big issue if they don't have a system, or because I guess now I'm talking more about older homes that don't have those systems installed. Right. So when would it be a big issue? Like the house sitting on a slab, or? Yeah, so
I've noticed a lot of the tests that have come back with high radon levels are on homes that are either on a slab or have like a finished basement space. So a lot of times when the home is kind of built into the slope versus being built on like a crawl space, right. I'll see that radon levels are elevated in the basement, but not necessarily in the rest of the house. So once you get up to the first and second floor, the radon levels may not be as hazardous, but if you are planning to use that basement space for living space, that can be a potential issue. So it can be costly to install a system on a home that on an older home that doesn't have any radon system at all, but there are companies in the area that specialize specifically in radon mitigation. So it's one of those things you definitely want to be aware of it before you move into the house. So,
right.
Yeah.
But even if you moved into the house and there was no radon, it may be there, right? Since it's like the gas and it moves.
Yeah.
So you need to inspect the property.
Yes.
Once in a while.
Yeah, so I do recommend to my clients, even if the test does come back low, I recommend retesting every 2 years because depending on the outside climate, or I've noticed that even rain kind of helps elevate radon levels sometimes. So it is important to test for it regularly, even if the levels come back very, very low on the original test. It's important to have it tested at least every few years to make sure that it's the radon levels are staying in check.
Would you say Greenville County or Spartanburg County has more homes with radon?
I would say Greenville County. So there's actually the EPA, Environmental Protection Agency. They put out a radon map, state by state, county by county, and it shows where elevated radon levels are. So if you look at the map for South Carolina, the majority of the state is very low radon levels. It's not until you get into Greenville County that those levels start to get very elevated. So I'd say Greenville County is probably the hot spot, at least in South Carolina for radon.
So I guess I did good moving to Spartanburg.
I guess so, yeah.
But when I am recommended my clients to hire a home inspector, I'm trying to save them money, right? So what's the biggest saving or the biggest issue that you found within a home during your inspections, like 20,000 in repairs or whatever?
I would say pay close attention to the age of the HVAC system. A lot of times I'll run into this issue where it works perfectly fine while I'm there doing my inspection, but it could be a 15, 20, 25-year-old system. So even though it's working just fine while I'm there doing my inspection, it's important to monitor that and prepare to replace that system in the next few years because especially here in South Carolina, it gets so hot and humid in the summer and your AC unit is being used basically around the clock, especially in the hotter months. And so typically the lifespan on those are between, I'd say 10 and 15 years. Now, obviously that varies a lot depending on how much you use it and the brand and, how well you maintain the system. But I always tell people to pay attention to the age of the system because even though it's working well while I'm there, it could, it could need to be replaced in the next year or two, and that's something that could be a costly replacement down the road. So
Just trying to tell me that you're not a fortune teller. Right?
that's exactly right. Yeah, I always tell people it could last another 5 to 10 years, or it could could
One
crap
more
out
day.
tomorrow. Yeah, exactly. I mean, I've seen condenser units from the 90s that are still working just fine. Actually, a house I did for you probably about a year ago had a train AC unit from the 90s that was still working just fine. So all I can do is report on the condition of the property while I was there. To your point, I'm not a fortune teller,
Too
so
bad. Maybe you need to.
I wish I was. Yeah, maybe I can get licensed for that. But
Yeah, and charge more.
there you go.
Some business ideas.
There you go. But yeah, no, it's important to have the HVAC system serviced annually to have it working its best. And again, if your system's over 10 to 15 years, I would recommend monitoring it and preparing to possibly have it replaced. Of course, try and get as much life out of it as you can, but don't be surprised if you need to replace it in the next few years. So that's a big thing. People think, oh, just the AC is working great, the heat is working great. Pay attention to the age of the unit.
That's true. I had one client closing on a house. They moved in, and the same day the AC broke. So it was an issue.
It is an issue, yeah, especially with resale homes. You'll see a lot of times too, if the house has been vacant for a few months, the system hasn't been used quite as frequently, and so the demands once you and your family move into the home might be a little different than they have been the last few years. So it's important to keep that in mind and just monitor the effectiveness of the system, because especially if it's a 20, 30-year-old home, the system may not have been replaced and it could be on its last legs even though it's still working properly.
Gotcha. Is there anything else that I forgot to mention or ask you that you can tell people who are watching us?
I would just say, be careful who you use, for your inspections. There's some companies out there that, do the bare minimum in terms of the standards of practice for home inspectors, which there's nothing wrong with that, but it's important to work with a inspector
There's something wrong with it. It's just like they shouldn't be doing that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's the standards are very much the bare minimum, and you want to find a inspector that'll go above and beyond and do that, take that extra step, do that extra investigation to find out if there's underlying issues with your home that may cause issues years down the road once you move in. So again, we're not fortune tellers, but it is important to find a home inspector that will go above and beyond for you. So
Gotcha. Well,
that would be it. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you so much for your time. I appreciate you telling my clients and everybody who's watching the video a little bit more about the home inspection and inspections in general.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. And thanks for having me. If you do need to schedule a home inspection, you can do that through my website, magnoliainspections.com.